paramotor people are often wondering, I'm guessing. And if you're possibly considering getting a smaller wing, maybe this will help you in deciding. So, that being said, first thing that you want to consider when deciding whether or not you're wanting to get a smaller, spicier wing that could possibly be more dynamic is, obviously, are you ready for it? Now, I would never, ever, ever base whether or not you're ready for it on the amount of hours that you have piloted. Yes, it is a good generalization to do for a slight, kind of broad idea of whether or not you might be able to handle the new spiciness, but really it is a mental question. So whether or not you're ready to fly a smaller wing is really, it's a comfort thing, and how well you would address your skills in the flying. So sorry, lost concentration for a second there. Anyways, as I was saying, whether or not you should get a smaller wing, it really depends on, well, one thing, the type of flying that you want to do, and another thing, the type of flying that you're able to do and are ready to do. I am a huge proponent of getting the absolute most out of the wing that you currently have and learning it like the back of your hand before moving to a smaller wing. I have purchased smaller wings before I was probably ready to fly them, but it was because they came on sale and I knew eventually that was something that I was wanting to move into. So I purchased it and I waited to fly it until I was more ready for flying it. Don't get me wrong, there were some times that I flew it, but if you get a smaller wing, just be extremely cautious, because the amount of brake input that you put on a larger wing is not going to be a direct correlation to how much brake input you're going to want to use on a smaller wing. And the amount of energy that you end up gaining in turns and things like that is something that you have to be able to be ready to control. I know I harp on energy management a lot, but it's pretty much the whole scenario as far as the wing size goes as well. But I think a lot of times pilots are getting into these different wings under the basis of thinking that it makes them a more skilled, better pilot. And in some ways, yes, that might be true. However, I will say doing good wing overs on a big wing is much harder than doing good wing overs on a small wing. So don't buy a small wing to improve your skills. Use your bigger wing to improve your skills, and then use that same skill set onto your smaller wing. However, things are going to behave much differently, as I discussed. But I think the biggest thing is just make sure that your skill set is ready for it. It is very much a mindset thing. So with a smaller wing, you have basically zero room for tolerance as far as decision making. So in a bigger wing, everything moves a little bit slower. You have more time to react. You can change your mind on things and not get hit as abruptly with something. So if you're getting into wing overs and stuff, I highly, highly suggest you get good and proficient at doing them on your big wing before even considering doing them on a smaller wing. It will require a larger amount of skill to do them on the bigger wing, but that is a skill that is invaluable, and you will definitely use that skill throughout your paramotoring career. So I would say if you're thinking about possibly getting a smaller wing, I will try to give you a little bit of advice on what I would suggest. If you're currently flying an A glider, I would say you could probably move to a C without having to stop at a B. But if you are uncertain with your skills and not really confident in your skills, I would suggest going through all the steps and moving into a B, because there isn't a whole lot you can't do on a B that you'll be able to do on a C without just a touch more effort involved. I was flying a 24-meter Spider, and I was able to do very nice large wing overs, basically at the full top of the pendulum. I mean, a full-size wing over on a Spider 24-meter. And I normally fly like a Sirocco 22. That was my first wing that I fly. And yes, that is a C wing. I was trained on A's and B's, and really there wasn't a whole lot that I couldn't do on that 24-meter Spider that I could do on my 22-meter Sirocco. Yeah, it takes a little more effort, but effort is also equal to skill. So whereas like what I'm doing right now on my Viper 16, it's very little effort, and the pendulum will gradually get bigger and bigger. And if you're not good at correcting your pendulum, you could get yourself into some trouble, especially this low to the ground. So, like I've said before, anything you decide to do it up higher. Practice all your maneuvers up higher until you get so good at them you can do them with a blindfold on. And then worry about doing the stuff down low. That's just my opinion. Obviously, you can do whatever you want to, but I would suggest that if you're considering moving up in spiciness level and down in size, which is generally how you do it. So I don't have a lot of reference for larger than I am people, but at my body weight, I am 175 pounds. My motor weighs about 55, given however much gas I put in it. And I fly a 22 if I'm looking for just kind of a nice relaxing flight. I actually even have a 27.5-meter base 2, which is just a big fluffy wing. And I will say doing wing overs on that, it takes a large amount of effort, and I like that about it. It really makes you be a better pilot by doing wing overs on a larger wing. I can't say that enough. So I know a lot of people ooh and ah about seeing a person go crazy on a small wing, flinging themselves around like the barrel rolls you saw me doing earlier in the video. But really, it's not hard at all once you've learned all the fundamentals and get good with the energy management side of things as far as that goes. The biggest thing with the small wings is you just can't hesitate. You have to make a decision, and you have to make the decision quickly, and you have to do the correct amount of inputs. It's more of a precision thing. There's definitely less room for error where you might pull, 3 inches. You might have like a 3-inch buffer for the amount of brake pull you can do on a big wing. You have, a half an inch of brake pull correction, like a half-inch window of brake pull that you can do on a small wing. And if you go over the half-inch, then you're in big trouble. And if you go under the half-inch, you're also in big trouble. So it's just a much more precision thing when you get to the smaller wings. It's not that they can really do that much more than the big wings can. They just do it with less effort. So I hope that's helpful, guys. Any other things you might possibly consider? As far as an hour amount, I'm sure you've heard enough people talk to you about, it'd be like a 100-hour pilot, you can use this wing, 200 hours to use this wing, different skill levels and things like that. And I don't know what the right answers are. It really depends on how diligent you are about learning as you fly. If you're just constantly flying around, hands up, not doing anything, and you're just like this all the time, I don't care how many, years you've been flying for, if you're not trying to progress in your skill set, not that there's anything wrong with this, because this is perfectly wonderful, and if this is the reason you're flying, this is a perfectly good reason to fly. And there's often times when I just want to get up and kind of float around like this. This is fantastic. So if you're using paramotors to be a seat in the sky, you'd have absolutely no reason to get a smaller paraglider. It would just be silly. It takes quite a bit more effort to launch a small glider just because they're more twitchy on the ground. And they often have a tendency to want to overshoot you. You have to run quite a lot faster before you can take off. And that's something to consider as well, too. So if you have bad legs or if you don't like running, just different things like that. You don't want to have a small glider because it's just that much harder to take off. And obviously, you guys all know in this In this game, taking off is the most obnoxious part of the whole thing. Everything else is pretty much easy once you're up in the air. But yeah, so just little things to consider. You have to determine what type of pilot you want to be and what type of pilot you currently are. You know, if you're up on your Sirocco or your Roadster or, you know, just a Spider or any dewdeck, you know, like a dewdeck Universal, you could do some nasty stuff on a dewdeck Universal, and you could probably move up to like a Drift Air or something like that. But just be very aware of your own abilities before moving forward, because there's nothing cool about having a smaller glider and not knowing how to fly it. Mind you, I understand you'll have to go through a learning phase once you get the new glider, and that's totally fine. But just approach it slowly. You know, it's a whole new scenario. All right, so what are we gonna do? One example I will give you is, okay, so on this wing, my Viper 16, I'm going to have my hands at my brakes. I'm not going to be pulling them. You're just going to have to trust me. But it's a very spicy glider, so here's an example of how spicy it is. If I lean hard, I can get it to dive. If I lean hard the other direction, now we're doing a roll. And then if I lean hard the other direction, we're doing a roll. And we're in a spiral, basically. So it can do a crazy amount. That was all off a weight shift. Obviously, I'm on brakes now because I had to correct all that chaos. But that's just an example. So you don't want to be shimmying around in your seat and accidentally throw yourself into the ground. That would make you feel really stupid. This is a glorious day. However, it is quite chilly up here. I was going to practice doing some power loop entry stuff with the speed bar and things. However, I didn't realize that my seat, I've got my little pulley mount is torn on my seat. So I'm gonna have to do some sewing there. I'll probably practice it some more before I get that fixed, honestly, but it's not fully severed. It still would work, but I probably should get it fixed before it fully falls off. But it is quite chilly up here. My hands, well, that's glue from doing some plumbing. Yeah. Well, it's a short one, but it's a sweet one. So if you have any questions about wing size, or if you're uncertain with your skills, or just want any kind of information at all, I will do my best to answer them. I am not a professional by any means. I like to think I'm decent at flying. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to help people out. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I will get back to you ASAP and try to help you as best I can. As always, guys, happy flying, be safe, have a wonderful and blessed day. I'm gonna go carve it up down in that glorious patch of green, because that's just glorious looking. Yep, that's the plan. All right, and here we go. Scoo!
Alrighty guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I guess the main takeaway is don't think that you need to get a smaller wing to advance in your skills. I would say quite the opposite is true. So if you have a glider now and you're not able to do the things that you want to do, it kind of depends slightly on the glider. I will say, like an A glider, it's going to be quite difficult to do very many maneuvers. They just don't respond well to it because you don't have a lot of influence over the wing itself. However, if you step down and you're into like a B glider or something along those lines, there should be not any issues with doing a lot of things as long as you're moderately weighted on that glider. That's pretty much the whole game, is the kind of the power, like the weight to size ratio of you in the glider. Basically, I would just really suggest try to get the most possible out of your wing before feeling the need to go into a smaller glider. Try to perfect all your skills on the larger glider, and you will be greatly rewarded when you go to a smaller glider. Everything will feel more natural. You'll get yourself into less sticky situations that you don't have a clue how to get yourself out of. I have done it myself before. I don't know if you saw any of my early free ride videos, but there was one where I got kind of light on it because I didn't react quick enough. And these are the types of things that can happen if you're not ready for it and you don't exactly know what you're doing. So just proceed with great caution if you decide to go down in size, and learn a lot about each glider before you throw it into larger maneuvers, and just be prepared to make quick decisions. That way you don't get yourself into a situation that you're unable to get yourself out of. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and I will be sure to answer them as quickly as possible. And as always, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.